I have a cassava and maize, and there is another one, a plantain and yam or something like that. So in this case, I've just, for illustration, want to add a second crop with egusi being a cucumber of sorts, which is a valuable food crop. Harrison will tell us what you would grow with egusi, because I don't even know what you'd put as an intercrop. Sometimes it's grown on its own, but maize or something? What would you grow with egusi, Harrison?
Yeah, actually you do intercrop maize and egusi, and then they also do egusi in cocoa farms.
Right, so I'm going to put maize for this illustration, and we've got a model for South Central Cameroon, which is where we are roughly. Putting 50% productivity factor, which is, my understanding is, it means it produces half of what it would produce if it was on its own.
Exactly. That's what I wanted everyone to hear.
You might put it a bit higher than that. You might put it at 60.
That's very important, is that if you do an intercrop, you know, if you overlay your maize with your egusi, then you won't get as much maize as if you were growing just your maize alone, right? Because the land is shared with another crop. So here you should really pay attention to this percentage. We are by default proposing you 50%, meaning if this is an intercrop, we are cutting your productivity by 2 from the data you've put in your workspace. But you are free to adjust it and put it to 60% as James just did.
So I have a question on this.
Hello, James.
Yeah.
Yes, from what Thomas just explained, it also depends too on the crop that you are it depends on the crop that you are intercropping, because if you intercrop, if you are doing intercropping for crops that do not have this, that do not fit from the same soil components, if the yield may not really be affected when you do intercropping.
Good. In that case, you can put 100%.
Yeah, because you have, if you take, for example, solanaceous crops that have the same feeding components, their yield and productivity may drop. But if the two crops, the crops you are intercropping, do not have the same feeding components and are not like having the same feeding zone, it may not affect the yields. We just have to take note of that. So it's more for us to see what intercropping we could possibly do, and at the same time look at what is practice on the ground.
A good example, just which we haven't calibrated yet, but cocoa yam under cocoa yam anyway likes to be grown in shade. So if it wasn't cocoa, it would be under some other shade, and the yield, probably the model for yield is assuming it's under shade anyway. So it doesn't need to be divided by 2 when you intercrop it with cocoa.
Yes, James, that's perfect, because actually the droppings from the leaves dropping from the cocoa act as a manure for the cocoyams, and it increases yields. I personally observe this in Nyasoso, and it's what is obtained in this area, some of these areas also.
That's very important. So if you have an increase in yield, what you can do is always to change the data, which is under average yields. No, we were just seeing it before.
Let's go quickly to this one then, cocoa yam.
Exactly. You can always change the data you have here, okay, but also in the settings, economy settings. Here, you have your yield here, right? You can always check that and increase it in the case of there is of a synergy, you know, of a crop synergy. You can increase your yield here and put the exact yield you get from that sophisticated cropping practice.